On the march. Civil War soldiers did most of their traveling on foot. One Union soldier marched 143 miles, 230 kilometers, in 16 days, with a 2-day battle in between. That's a lot of ground to cover in worn-out boots, no socks, and blistered toes. Soldiers marched 15 to 20 miles, 24 to 32 kilometers a day. But hot weather made long marches risky. Soldiers who wore wool uniforms and carried bedrolls, food, and guns often fainted when marching on hot days. Weary from travel, soldiers marched into battle. The Army of the Potomac marched 20 to 30 miles, 32 to 48 kilometers a day from Virginia to Gettysburg in June 1863. Many of these men suffered sunstroke. Other than the soldiers' blistered feet, horses were the main transportation during the war. Up to 2 million horses pulled wagons, carried riders, and braved bullets on Civil War battlefields. I'm not really sure. I almost wonder. As a good reader, I like to jot down questions and things I wonder. And maybe research those a little bit more to help me understand this a little better. So in this section on the march, it sounds like this is telling us what life was like when they were marching. And they really did march. I mean, 15 to 20 miles a day, 20 to 30 miles for the Army of the Potomac. That is a lot of miles. That does not sound like a situation I'd want to be in. In a single day, 1 million Civil War horses would have peed enough urine to fill more than 12 standard swimming pools. Whoa. And this war was 1861 to 1865. And the horses peed enough urine to fill more than 12 swimming pools a day. Yeah, that sounds pretty disgusting. That sounds like a terrible situation for the soldiers to even be in. Okay? Ooh, deadly weapons. I already have a question I'm wondering here. What weapons did they use? I know it's in the past, so maybe they used like some of those weapons that Native Americans would have used. Maybe they had certain kinds of guns. I'm not sure. I also wonder what made them so deadly. Why were the battles of the Civil War so horribly bloody? Civil War soldiers were armed with rifles. Rifles were accurate at much farther distances than past weapons. The newer weapons had a closer range. Okay, let me pause here. Range is the farthest distance ammunition can travel to reach its target. So the new weapons could go farther. Their rifles shot lead bullets that exploded when they hit bone. But soldiers still had to advance near enemies to drive them off the battlefield. The closer the bullet's impact, the more damage it caused. These rifles could crush an advancing enemy, as they did during the Battle of Antietam. On September 17, 1862, in Maryland, Union soldiers marched shoulder to shoulder, creating a wall of men. Confederate soldiers, lying in a nearby cornfield, suddenly stood up and fired. Union soldiers went down in waves. Antietam was the bloodiest single day in the Civil War. Close to 23,000 men were wounded, killed, or captured. Wow. I think that's a pretty important battle. I'm going to jot that down. Battle of Antietam. September 17th, 1862. 23,000 dead or wounded or captured. Ooh. I guess this is the men. These are dead soldiers at Antietam. Look how they're just laid out. This is a real picture, a real photograph. Wow. It's pretty detailed. Now, this is interesting. This one says battle wounds. And down here, it's almost written like a letter, like a diary entry. So this would be a primary source. Okay, that means whoever wrote it, whoever saw it, was there. Okay. Thomas Haynes of Company E took off his hat, placed it on his ramrod, and holding it up, shouted to the boys along the line to see what a close call he had while out in front. For a mini ball had passed through the creased crown of his hat, making 4 holes. Before he could get his hat back on his head, a small shell burst over us and mortally wounded him. This is written from Sergeant Alexander G. Downing. He's part of the Confederate Army on Sunday, April 5th, 1862. It just kind of shows us how quickly death occurred. Mortally wounded him, which means killed him. Oh, this section continues on. I love it. Okay, we've got another photograph here. Looks like 2 different sides fighting. Look how close. I mean, imagine those explosive bullets hitting your body here. How much damage they could cause. Soldiers for both the North and South suffer heavy losses at Gettysburg. Foul fact. Metal shells exploded in air. They rained down sharp pieces of metal, killing large numbers of soldiers. Like metal rain. Oh. Mini balls were the most common ammunition used. These lead balls caused 108,000 battlefield wounds. Headshots killed instantly. Stomach shots were usually fatal too. During the Battle of Gettysburg in July 1863, Confederate troops were mowed down by gunfire as they advanced during Pickett's charge. Soldiers lay where they fell with large holes in their stomachs. Arms and legs hit with mini balls were often amputated. That means to remove an arm or leg, so to cut it off. Oh my goodness. Shattered bones could not be put back together. Wounded soldiers made a tourniquet from a belt, rope, or shirt sleeve to stop the bleeding. A tight wrapping designed to prevent a major loss of blood from a wound. Oh, it kind of makes me think about like in movies when you see someone like tear off a piece of the shirt and then tie it really tight just to stop the blood from bleeding. If ammunition ran out, soldiers used bayonets at the end of their guns to attack the enemy. Bayonets sliced through uniforms. Germs from the dirty uniforms were plunged deep into the victim's body. Infected wounds killed many soldiers long after the battle. Oh, I think I'm going to jot this down, this battle here. The Battle of Gettysburg. That was July 1863. I'm going to jot down one of my thoughts too, because I was reading down here. It sounded like the weapons were really terrible, but it doesn't sound like the weapons were the only thing that killed the men. So weapons killed, but in this last paragraph, it sounds like infection killed too. Battling germs. Oh, I like that last section. They started talking about infection, and now it sounds like they're going to talk about germs, which would be part of infection. Imagine being a Civil War soldier on the march for hours under a hot sun. Your stomach is churning. That bacon you ate last night smelled bad, but you ate it anyway. Now you feel like your guts might explode. At last, the commanding officer shouts, "Take 10," and you rush to the nearest bush. Anyone ever had a stomach ache like that? Like food poisoning? Oh, I like how the author's trying to put us into this situation here, making me imagine what it would be like. Wants me to feel, put myself in the shoes, be empathetic for these soldiers. So let's see what happens. I mean, I've obviously went to the bathroom. After you hurry down to the pond below to wash, then you take off your sweaty hat, fill it with pond water, and drink. Fall in, the officer shouts, and you march off again. You just went to the bathroom behind the bush. You then went to the pond to wash off, and then you drank the water in your sweaty hat from that same pond that you just washed in. People were unaware of germs in the 1860s. Disease spread easily in war conditions. The sicker soldiers got, the worse their living conditions became. If soldiers washed at all, they did it in the same water they drank. That's gross. But I guess they had no choice. In the 1860s, some people, even doctors, believed that full beards protected men from sickness. But the opposite was true. Spit, vomit, and blood stuck to the mustaches and beards. Lice often made their homes in long beards. In 1863, living conditions for Union soldiers became so bad that generals began issuing hygiene orders. Actions people perform to stay clean and healthy, all like brushing our teeth, washing our body. Men were ordered to wear their hair short and bathe twice a week. They were to change their clothes at least once a week. But soldiers often ignored these orders. This here, primary source, this is a Confederate soldier's sewing kit, included a toothbrush and a washcloth. Okay, so they would be able to like stitch their clothes back together, but also a toothbrush and a washcloth. But look how clean that washcloth is. This is what they had during that entire war, just this one. You didn't get extra ones when they lost it or it got dirty. And this is a primary source too. Civil War soldiers often bathe in murky river water. I wonder what murky means. From the looks of it, I'm thinking dirty, not clean, maybe muddy. But I'll have to look up that word to make sure I know. That'll be where we stop for today.